I've seen this a lot, specifically on Reddit. There are men who go 15 or more years without romance or sex, and I just wonder how. Does it become less desirable over time? Do you just pretend not to care? Do you get angry or scared? Is there a possible reason why? So many questions. Edit. I think the how part of the question is coming off the wrong way. It's more like, how do you handle it? Not how did this happen? Apologies for the misunderstanding. I promise I'm not trying to insult anyone. I just wanted to hear that perspective instead of assuming this is how that specific group of people feel. Story 1. You know that advice you sometimes hear? Stop looking and it will find you? Well, I stopped looking or worrying about it and just left it to fate. But it never found me. Story 2. I don't really know. You just accept that it's not part of your life and get on with your day. What is the alternative? Wallow in it and be a desperate, sad, lonely person? Do I sometimes wish I could have a different life? Sure, I guess. But whatever. Edit. I am 47 years old, and it has been 16 years. By the way, I am not some 23-year-old saying never laugh out loud. If that matters. Story 3. I have never had romance or sex, and I cope by trying not to care too much about it. In my 35 years of life, no girl or woman has given me much thought, and sex and romance require the participation of a woman. It is entirely my own fault, and I know when and where my life took this path, but it is a bit late to change it now. Sure, I feel sad that my life turned out this way, but I can't do much about it. I'm not going to complain or whine about this in real life. I have to keep wearing the mask and pretend to be normal. It is what it is. The hardest part about being a man is that nobody cares about you. The best part about being a man is that nobody cares about you. Story 4. The last date I went on was 4 years ago. We dated for about 3 weeks, then she ended it. I am just tired of constantly chasing women and getting absolutely nothing in return. The effort is no longer worth it. Some men do not have to try, and they get attention from women. Other men go through life unnoticed by women. I figure I can either keep swiping on the apps, keep chasing women, and keep failing repeatedly, or I can work on other things in my life that I can control. I do not want to become a bitter man who is hateful towards women. So, I have decided to cut them out of my life. It is truly better for my mental health. Story 5. I don't understand what you mean. I handle it because I have to. I'm unattractive, say the wrong things, and my interests are things women often find unappealing. So they're not interested in me. That's okay. There are plenty of other things in life that do interest me. I should note this doesn't mean I don't like or associate with women. I have many platonic female friends. They just aren't interested in me in that way. Maybe someday it will catch up, and I'll feel really bad about it, but that's not who I am. Sometimes as I get older, I think, you'll never sleep with a 20-year-old. Because that time has passed. But it's just a brief thought and I move on. Story 6. Well, I kind of have to. I certainly did not want to go more than 15 years without a romantic or sexual life. But no woman has ever been interested in me in that way. I have to publicly act like I do not care because nobody wants to hear a man talk about how he cannot have a romantic or sexual life, especially when it is easy for others to have one. What I am going through is not healthy for anyone. But no one cares. Story 7. We handle it because we do not have a choice. I have been in a sexless marriage for 12 years. What am I supposed to do? Get divorced and lose everything? Cheat and end up divorced and lose everything? She is definitely not interested, so I have no option but to just live with it. Does it suck? Absolutely. Am I miserable? Definitely. Would I empty my checking account just for a few hours of good cuddling and maybe a makeout session? Probably. Story 8. I think for men it is much harder to find intimacy. It is not something we can simply choose to do. For the most part, we are expected to navigate a complex set of social and emotional cues in order to become intimate and start dating. Generally speaking, if a man wants to find intimacy, he has to initiate it. Men are seldom asked out, and many do not know how to ask someone out. Different men experience a lack of intimacy differently. Personally, my experience of being without intimacy or being single has changed a lot. especially my view on relationships after entering my first and so far only relationship. At first, my experience was depression, feeling sad about it, and a significant lack of self-esteem. I have gotten better and now have goals to focus on as I am in college. I feel lonely occasionally, but those feelings are less frequent and less intense. At this point, I have become content with being single and much happier. It is not that I do not want a relationship. I just do not need one because if I need one, I will never get one. Story 9. For me, it has been over 10 years. When one has not been exposed to or experienced something for such a long time, it almost feels like it no longer exists, but obviously we are aware it exists since it is everywhere. We do not know what to feel anymore. I was never angry. If anything, I was frustrated with myself early on. But I am not pretending. I truly do not care anymore if I were never to be with someone. I have lived this long without romance or whatever and am pretty content with it. Sure, maybe life would be better with someone, but I do not know what that is like, nor do the what-ifs really bother me anymore. I can handle myself. Story 10. You handle the situation as you would handle being an amputee. You can live a decent life without it, although it may feel incomplete. You have no choice, so you just deal with it. Story 11. It becomes less desirable because you start to get tired of the drama that often comes with it. It's just not worth it unless you find someone truly special. Most of the time, people have sex for the dopamine and adrenaline rush. Then it turns into a chess piece for leverage, manipulation, blame, and disease. There is more to life than focusing on sex. Your hands and fingers cannot get pregnant because your girlfriend lied about birth control or tampered with the condom. Hands and fingers will not manipulate you by using sex as a carrot on a stick. Story 12. I am a 51-year-old divorced man. I deeply yearn for connection. A relationship that meets my needs for conversation, companionship, cuddling, sex, emotional support, and acts of service when I am overwhelmed or sick. My ex-wife was very critical and negative. After my divorce, I had 2 very materialistic girlfriends. I found myself believing that my only worth to my ex or to another woman was based on what I could do and provide, not who I am, my values, emotions, caring, listening, and behaviors. Since then, I have lost my 6-figure job and my self-confidence. Even though I know intellectually that this is not an issue with all women, I have stopped believing that a woman would love me unconditionally. I cope by fighting deep depression and loneliness, hiding it from friends and family as best as I can, and pouring my efforts into other things. Story 13. I have been in my current situation for 9 years, and life has become less complicated. I was a single father and had enough on my plate, so I was not going out of my way to find a relationship. After a year, I found myself in a relationship, but she mocked me in front of her friends for wanting to wait. I decided to hold off on dating. I was able to pay off my house, buy another car, and rescue animals in my free time. All of these things bring me much more joy. Dating sites have ruined dating. I am not trying to advertise that I am financially secure, and I am sure they would dislike that I play video games and talk affectionately to my rabbits. Life is much more peaceful without dating. Story 14. Went 12 years, 4 years consecutively without so much as a hug. It gets to the point you don't even notice. Then suddenly, years have gone by and you are so used to the calm you grow to enjoy it. The downside is when you flinch at every touch after such solitude because it is too overwhelming to the senses. Stopped masturbating as well, so my body was not used to someone else's touch. It affects people differently. Story 15. I'm not sure what you mean by how. I wasn't exactly given a choice. Does it become less desirable over time? No, but I have found plenty of other things to do to avoid being bored. Yes, there is a big part of the human experience that I miss out on, but my spare time is far from empty. Story 16. I mean, you act like people have a choice. A lot of people just do not have a choice. You just adapt. I would imagine, like with most things, there are phases, like the phases of grief. Anger at the situation, resentment, depression, then acceptance. I also think a lot of people, women included, who deal with a lot of rejection find it easier to just not try than get rejected over and over again. At some point, you just have to accept reality for what it is. Story 17. A lot of men and women do not have a choice. How do you go years without it? You just have to accept it. There really is not anything else to do. If you never experienced it, you do not really know what you are missing. Story 18. I've been single from 18 to 25. At some point, you learn to be okay with yourself. I am extroverted, but I don't mind spending time alone. I had friends to share my thoughts with, hobbies that fulfill me, and patience. That patience has allowed me to wait for the right person. Now I can share all these things I have achieved over the years. We are both quite independent. It sounds better than starting a relationship with the wrong person just because one cannot stand being single. Story 19. For context, 35 million. If we show interest in you ladies and we do not know each other or have only been briefly acquainted, we get labeled creeps. If we are good friends and catch feelings and you do not, and we are able to move past it, we still get labeled weird by you and every one of your close girlfriends. That all takes the shine off trying. I can list about 30 people I have had crushes on over the years. There are only 5 or 6 I have actually tried to show interest to. Story 20. No, it does not become less desirable, you just get used to it. Loneliness worsens depression, so yes, fun times. Story 21. Seeing your father, uncle, and other male relatives and friends get treated unfairly by divorce laws definitely supports the decision to stay single and even celibate. Story 22. I accepted that I am not a good choice as a potential partner due to finances, health, and bad habits. I started working on myself. I got used to being alone. I realized I am still not a good potential partner because I am selfish with my time and too focused on my own matters. I repeat the process. Story 23. Easy. When you go through high school and college where women tell you that you are creepy and they want nothing to do with you, the message is pretty clear. If you never have it, you never miss it. Story 24. What do you mean, how? There is really no how to it. I just have not found a partner in nearly 10 years. It is not for lack of trying either. I was recently ignored by a woman I asked out. Questions like this or comments such as, I have not had sex in 2 years, come off as incredibly privileged and honestly a bit hurtful. Story 25. How do we do it? Here is a riddle for you. How many times do you need to be told no until you stop asking the same question? Story 26. You don't stop wanting it. You just get used to the silence and the loneliness. Some days you're fine. Other days it hurts like hell. But you learn to carry it. Story 27. I met my wife and we married after 11 days. We were married for 25 years until she passed away. It has been 10 years now, and I cannot get over the feeling of cheating. That is how it is for me. Story 28. We have to put a lot of effort into it and get rejected quite often. When I stopped putting effort, nothing happened for over 2 years. I am tall, in shape, with money. I am funny and flirty. I took the advice that it will find me, but it did not. I have to put in conscious effort if I want it to happen. Story 29. Being bullied for your looks long enough can cause you to lose all interest in human relationships of any kind. Having a naturally antisocial personality can contribute to that. The issue is that having a very high sex drive is frustrating, but there is also a lot of free adult content available on the internet. Story 30. We keep calm and carry on. Move forward and aspire to more important things. For a majority of men, getting sex without paying for it is a monumental task. Being charming, fun to be around, reading body language, learning how to escalate, even just maintaining eye contact is a challenge for many guys. Then there is the added pressure of actually being good at sex and intimacy. That requires experience. Many men do not have any, and many women do not want an inexperienced partner. So what do? This leads them down 3 paths. They pay for it. They say, if it happens, cool. If not, whatever. A small minority will actually try to improve. Story 31. I have been single my entire life and I am 34 years old now. It is painful, lonely, and unhealthy, but it is not like I really have a choice. I have never been chosen by anyone, and it takes a lot of work and resources to go out and try to find someone when you are constantly burnt out from life. So, I just exist, trying to cope by sleeping or filling my time with hobbies. There is plenty of frustration, anger, and fear, but again, you just deal with it because expressing any of this will make you even more undesirable. As for libido, you just take care of it yourself. Since I have never experienced it, I do not know what it is like, so I suppose I have the advantage of not missing it. All I know is it is all I have ever really wanted, even despite all the terrible things I hear about bad relationships. Story 32. I mean, what am I supposed to do? I cannot will a girlfriend into existence, and it is not like I will self-combust if I do not get one. Story 33. I've had a 5-year dry spell and a 10-year dry spell. To be honest, I was a little bit crazy by the end of both of them. It damages your mind, for sure. Nothing you can't recover from if you go back to a normal level of human contact, but I was definitely unraveling. Story 34. Original poster, I mean this in the most serious and respectful way possible. To respond to your main question, do you think they have any other choice but to go without intimacy? The way you word the question makes it sound like you think lack of intimacy is something they chose. Anyways, I will answer every single question you asked. It does not become less desirable over time, but it becomes hopeless to expect something that is clearly not going to happen. So if you know something is not going to be available for you, why would you expect it? Why would you try to seek it? Of course they care, but the way they feel and react depends heavily on the individual. From my experience, I imagine most people distract themselves with hobbies and other activities, which, after seeing the relationship nonsense from high school, really is not a bad thing. How do you handle it? I think most people turn to escapism and distraction to turn away from the sadness and dissatisfaction that comes from lack of intimacy. I did not experience intimacy until almost my mid-20s. It took me years of work to become semi-attractive, and I finally met someone who, I guarantee, would not even have given me the time of day if I had not done what I did, who was interested in me. Men who go without intimacy often do not have a choice. They get through it by focusing on the things in life other than sex and romance, of which there are many. Either they do this, or they delve into escapism and hide away from society. Humans always find a way to adapt. Story 35. I am 28 and have never been satisfied with my sex life. I have had sex fewer than 10 times but have probably masturbated thousands of times. It is safe to say that less than 1% of my ejaculations have been during sex. This is due to a combination of being unattractive, having poor social skills, and a social circle with no women. A lot of it is my fault too. I became complacent with being single and did not want to put in the effort. How do we deal with it? Some of us become angry and frustrated. That is the truth. But it comes and goes. Some days I get frustrated. Other days I am immersed in work and other things and do not really care. Story 36. I've never really been a ladies' man. I studied hard in school, and while I was not super unpopular, I was definitely not prom king either. For guys like me, sex happens in monogamous relationships. Hookups were rare and honestly kind of uncomfortable. So, unless I'm ready for a full-blown girlfriend, I'm probably not having sex. Having previously been married, which was difficult, and engaged, which was also difficult, I'm really not that excited about going out and meeting people. How do I deal with it? Well, the first few months of a dry spell are torture, and then it becomes normal. So it's about waiting for normal to kick in. Story 37. I feel like many men have difficulty finding a partner, either because they are afraid of appearing creepy in public, or because they do not believe there is a woman who could love them. Story 38. My previous relationship ended in 2019, and that was when I last had sex with someone. I have only had a few hugs from friends over the past 6 years. I am not going to lie, it is hard, and sometimes I feel lonely and unwanted. However, life responsibilities keep me occupied most of the time. I also try to distract myself with physical exercise, labor, hobbies, and meditation. I am not saying it has become less desirable, but I have managed to be more self-sufficient over the years. Story 39. I am a 51-year-old married to a 44-year-old woman for 22 years. She reached a point around 35 years old where intimacy just dried up. She became moody, experienced hot flashes, itchy ear canals, and insomnia, and saw various doctors. Eventually, we were intimate once every month or two, which qualifies as a sexless marriage. We became like roommates and gave each other silent treatments. I resented her and considered leaving, but I love her dearly. I did research and found that she was probably in perimenopause. I presented her with the evidence and found a hormone replacement therapy doctor, and she agreed to go. It changed everything when she started treatment. We are happier than ever and are intimate nightly unless one of us is overly tired or she is having one of her infrequent periods. Nobody should be in a sexless marriage if they don't want to be. It is not healthy. Story 40. For some, it is willpower. For others, it is a choice. For most, they do not have a choice. Men do not control access to sex. Women do. Many of us knock repeatedly, but the gate does not open. Story 41. You just accept it. There is really no other way around it. You can mope about it or you can get on with your life. Story 42. The amount of work required is overwhelming if you have any sort of standards. My energy and time are better spent elsewhere until it does not require as much effort. I simply do not want to. Additionally, every flaw you have makes it exponentially more difficult to date or have romantic encounters. I am slightly above average looking, but I am neurodivergent, poor, and living with family. The list goes on. We all have our flaws, some big and some small. We are competing with neurotypical individuals who have had stable upbringings, solid careers, financial security, and the ability to exercise 6 days a week. At the end of the day, it is a form of competition, and you can choose not to compete. Story 43. That's like asking how individuals with a chronic condition can continue living. Some people may choose to stop living. Story 44. Life passes by all too fast when you are busy taking care of other things. I got divorced at 26, now 50. I worked a schedule off and on away from home, gone half the year. When I was home, I had my kid with me the entire time I was off, so I had absolutely zero time for a social life or dating. My ex had another child with the man she cheated on me with, and he left a few years after that child was born. She was having a rough time with one child on her own, then added another to the mix that was not mine. Because I wasn't living with any social life at the time, I decided to offer taking her other child to ease her burden. But more importantly to me was having the younger child be with her older sibling. I thought that was the best thing to do at the time, as I could tell my ex's mental health was declining rapidly, and I didn't want that to affect my son's life while I was away from home. It worked out well for the kids. Then my ex hit a wall. Drugs and alcohol really started to take her into a dark place, and it became too dangerous for the children to be with her. Fortunately, she asked if I would take both children full-time, as she could not be a parent. I accepted, but that complicated my life more since I had no one to take care of my kids while I was away for 2 weeks at a time. I had to sell a house I had just bought, move 3 hours away, and move in with my mom. That really put another damper on my social life because I had to raise 2 kids and take care of my mother as her health started to decline after I moved in. That's how 20 years passed me by like the blink of an eye. Single from 26 to 50. Now I am in a strange place in life where I am perfectly fine being alone. Yet if I date, I will date with purpose and intention. But with age and the small town I am in, healthy people my age are hard to come by. Too many people get jaded or just don't grow up. It's 50-50. Then there is the burning question of why I am single and how messed up I must be at 50 to still be single. It's an unspoken stigma I'm sure I get judged on because of how others view people and their relationship status or lack thereof. I prioritized my kids first, and I wouldn't have done anything differently. Story 45. You adapt and manage. I was never one for one-night stands. Until I found my current girlfriend, I went 10 years without. Sex is not essential for life. Masturbation also takes care of the urge. Story 46. Part of me wants to get back into dating. I enjoy having another person to connect with emotionally and physically. Another part of me enjoys the free time I get by myself after work. I like relaxing as much as possible before going back and working hard. The world we live in requires that I sell the majority of my life to companies that would simply replace me if I died before my next shift. Relationships require time, effort, money, and emotion. Most of them do not work out. I also see so many cases of people cheating on one another, and I really do not want that. There are many factors that make me ambivalent or reluctant to get into a relationship. My drive for intimacy diminishes heavily when there is no one I am interested in and increases when I become interested in someone. Story 47. Most people in the world of dating bring significant stress to one's life with little benefit. I can enjoy my friends' and pets' company, manage my own sexual drive, or get a quick hookup if really needed. I do miss regular platonic cuddles and touch, but certain pets can provide that comfort. Dogs and cats can be very cuddly and loving. Story 48. I have a career and a house to take care of, and no one is interested. What am I supposed to do? I handle it because there is no option. Story 49. A more rounded answer is that most men do not have access to intimacy, physical or emotional, in any meaningful capacity. I spent most of my 20s and 30s creating close bonds with my male friends and focusing on hobbies. Did I want intimacy? Yes. Did I know healthy ways of getting intimacy? No. Many men were failed by society in how to approach women and realized it was a fantasy or a falsehood. When you do not know what the reality is, you step back to either figure it out or give up. Story 50. You just do. You learn to go on without it. I made peace with the fact that not having sex is not a sign of a defect on my part, but rather just how it is. It's not my fault. I didn't do anything wrong. It's just my fate. Do I sometimes stay up too late and wonder, what about me isn't good enough? Yes, and that's normal. I am human, and I'm small in a big, terrible world. But so is everyone else. Life is too short to waste it wondering why others won't have sex with you. Story 51. What is the alternative? I have been unattractive all my life, and I am not about to force or manipulate myself into a relationship. Story 52. For me, it is because I moved back to my hometown, which is very small and has no real social scene. Add to that I am gay and aside. Plus I cannot drive, and hookups or casual dating just are not feasible. I am fine with softcore pornography by myself. Story 53. My sex life pretty much started at 42, when I divorced 3 years ago. Before that, I was with my first partner who was not really interested. We played video games and did couple activities, watched movies, had dinners, and even took trips. There was even some romantic moments, but her lack of enthusiasm for physical touch made it all feel sad and hollow. I lived like this because I thought I was unattractive and not masculine enough to have a partner who would love and desire me. I coped by watching adult content alone in the bathroom. I am very glad I got out. Story 54. I just wonder how. Not that I have a choice in the matter. In a way, I do. I could pay for sex, but that's not something I'm looking for. Nor am I looking for cheap one-night stands, to be honest. I'm looking for love. So how? How does a child survive without its parents? How does a parent survive losing a child? There are many how questions lacking answers. The answer to all these questions is that we adapt and continue moving whatever it takes. The world isn't perfect. Life isn't fair. All we can do is play the hand we're dealt. No pun intended, though it's a good pun. Like, does it become less desirable over time? No. Do you just pretend not to care? Mostly, yes. Do you get angry or scared? Yes, sometimes. I fear dying without ever having known real, active, long-term love. But if that happens, it happens. If not, then not. I fear it but can't really influence it, not more than I've already done. This fear sometimes angers me, since anger is easier than fear, and sometimes I choose anger when feeling scared. I'm guessing many fellow men understand and feel this choice. Not saying it's a good choice, but feeling angry is preferable to feeling vulnerable and alone. Also, I don't project this anger onto others. Instead, I use the energy it gives me to work out. So I'm trying to let the anger have a positive impact. Let's put it this way. The influence of having no one to love isn't understated when I say I struggle with it on a daily basis. But to repeat myself, all I can do is play the hand I'm dealt. So I do. Is there a possible reason why? My ex messed me up badly. I can't really trust anyone anymore since her. I mean, I am trying, but maybe people feel that I'm never fully showing my hand. I'm also very introverted, and if first impressions mean everything, I'll get nothing. My character needs time to grow on people. Third, my standards are pretty high, but I'm not changing that since I'd rather stay single than settle for less. Fourth, I might be ugly, but that's a bit subjective, I think. Fifth, I refuse to use dating apps for the sake of my own mental health. You asked for possible reasons. I'm not saying these are the definitive reasons, but they are in the realm of possibilities for sure. 31-year-old male, by the way. Story 55. The circumstances of our marriage have made intimacy impossible. It has probably been 20 years since my wife and I were intimate. She suffered greatly with menopause, which began when she was young and lasted a long time. She is not one for doctors, so she never explored hormone treatments that might have helped. She lost all desire. She has also struggled with her weight, and when she gains weight, she feels less attractive, which affects her libido. Additionally, my severe snoring led us to separate bedrooms. That alone is a significant challenge, but I hated that she was losing sleep. I stopped pursuing intimacy years ago. Yes, I am frustrated, but I know she is as well. Fortunately, we are best friends, and that is how we handle it. Story 56. I have 2 dogs that love me. They cannot talk to me, but I see their tails wag. As for loving a good woman, I have not put the effort into finding one. I have a wife, but she left. I tried dating. It was okay until I got sick. Then I found out what it was like to be really alone. I did not die. I am okay alone. Story 57. Well, at least I do not handle it at all. Sometimes I just cry a bit. Most of the time I go to bed. That makes me sink deeper into a hole of self-pity, and that makes me less able to find intimacy. Story 58. I think people are just losing the ability to deeply connect. Everyone. Sex and intimacy demand connection. Otherwise, it is easier to masturbate. The world is creating lonely people who are comfortable in their own space. Story 59. I haven't had a girlfriend since I was in middle school. I'm 30 now. How do I handle being alone? One day at a time. Some days it's okay. But the bad days can get pretty heavy. If you let yourself sink into negativity, it will devour you. I try to keep busy, mainly whatever that looks like, just as long as I don't sit there in my thoughts for too long. Story 60. Honestly, it became really easy after a long time to the point where I enjoy my own company and do not see the value a relationship could bring to my life over just being on my own. I get to eat all the cake. Story 61. It is easy to become disinterested in the company of other people long enough, and the desire for intimacy tends to fade. There are days when I feel lonely, but I weigh the desire to find a partner against the effort relationships require, and suddenly I do not care anymore. Story 62. It's super easy for me. You cannot miss what you never had. I am about to turn 40, so going another 40 years will be trivial. Story 63. Does it become less desirable over time? It depends on the person. Some men on this forum have said in the past that they have tapped out for various reasons, but I will speak for myself and say that I would rather stay alone than be with someone who makes life worse. There is no point in being in a miserable relationship with someone who sees you as nothing more than a wallet or a backup plan. Story 64. It has been about a year and a half since I last had sex with my wife. Truth be told, I miss the intimacy more than the sex. I would be fine if my spouse just gave me a hug now and then, held my hand or said, "I appreciate what you do for us." Towards the end of our actual sex life, she was just not into it, and it showed. I really have no interest in having sex with someone who obviously does not want to be with me. Before I get responses blaming me and saying I should be more helpful around the house, etc., I pay all the bills, cook all the meals, put 3 kids through college with no debt, do laundry, handle all the outside work, and buy her new vehicles while I drive a pickup truck that is over 20 years old. I used to think that maybe it was me, but now I realize that it is her, and beating myself up does no good. The only thing that will work is to move on, and that is what I am in the process of doing. At 61, it is a bit daunting, and there are a lot of moving parts. Anyway, that is my story. Do not get married, kids. Story 65. After a few tries, you become disappointed, and it becomes increasingly difficult to become intimate or develop feelings. Then you get used to it. Sometimes you long for it, but life continues. I doubt it is different for men and women. Story 66. Loneliness is addictive. Once you get comfortable in your own company, you kind of become complacent and comfortable in your own zone. Any interference from any person in any form just starts to seem irksome. The freedom that comes with it is something you just do not want to let go. Story 67. Once you get over the initial hurdle where you feel like you really need it, it becomes easier as the days go by. You change your thought patterns and direct that energy into something else. Story 68. I've seen this a lot, specifically on Reddit. There are men who go 15 or more years without romance or sex, and I just wonder how. You can't miss what you never had. Does it become less desirable over time? It depends. I think American dating culture is worth less than the hassle, with less than desirable prospects. So why would I put myself through that to get something I have evidently survived without? Is there a possible reason why? No girl or woman has ever seen me as a desirable partner. They were especially open about how beneath them I was in grade school, and college and adulthood haven't been particularly better. Story 69. Is there another option? We have no choice. Intimacy is a two-way connection. If it is unavailable, then you cope and adapt. You make the best of it. That is life, and life is hard. Maybe it will pass, maybe it will not. But you just have to keep on going. Make the best of anything that brings you joy. Friends, hobbies, family, and the things that keep you busy and entertained. Make the best of your life and do the best with what is available to you. Story 70. This is embarrassing to write, but I am 28 years old, have never been in a relationship, have never had sex, struggle with friendships, and rarely go on dates. I grew up as an only child, so I am used to spending time by myself, but loneliness is still something I struggle with. I am very independent. The advantage is that I am very self-reliant, but the disadvantage is that I do not let people affect my mood, whether good or bad. I have been depressed most of my life, but I have determined that happiness is not a requirement for a good life. As long as I am fulfilling my obligations and providing a net positive to the world, then I am doing all right. Story 71. How? We do not have a choice. Your other questions can mostly be answered by pointing out that no one cares about us, so we just bottle everything up inside. Story 72. This is similar to asking how many people go years without making millions of dollars. It is not a choice they make intentionally. Story 73. Depression is a powerful challenge. Add anxiety about performance and body insecurities. Yes, there are reasons. Story 74. I am turning 50 next year. I have been on disability for a while now. I was married for 10 years and got used to having a woman in my life. In my current situation, trying to find romance is extremely demoralizing, so I gave up. Women these days have very long lists of expectations. It is difficult because I really do miss it, but at this point in my life, I just count my blessings. At least I can reminisce about all the beautiful women I was with when I was younger. Story 75. My best friend has been married for 26 years. There has been no sexual contact for 17 years, maybe longer. He has developed 4 or 5 solid group hobbies that keep him busy at home and take him away from home often. Added to this is a strong sense of Catholic guilt. Story 76. What choice do we have? You just wake up and go to sleep every day waiting for the end. Basic human experience. Story 77. I am 26 years old and have been single for about 5 years. I have been busy working, trying to maintain financial stability and relationships with family and friends. Sex and romance are important, and I have a lot of love to give. However, I do not go out of my way to start conversations where sex or romance is expected. I believe it is important to get to know someone and share common interests before discussing dating. Attraction to someone's personality and mindset takes time. I would never consider someone a potential partner if we were not already friends. Many people, however, do not want to date their friends. The dating app ecosystem is focused on finding someone new. Story 78. I do masturbate, but it seems exhausting to find a partner you can trust and feel comfortable around. Loneliness is preferable to letting someone I actually dislike get close to me. I have always felt emotionally muted and do not express myself well, so it is hard to connect with people. Story 79. As life progresses, you will find that some damage just needs a lot of time to heal. Sometimes it is not just that, but also the fear of feeling that way again or worse. Sometimes you love someone so dearly that you cannot let another person get close again. Sometimes you repeatedly have the worst experiences and decide to put things on hold for a while. Unintentionally, months turn into years, then into a decade or two, and you simply adjust to that. Sometimes life has funny ways you thought would not be possible, yet you live in that impossible. Story 80. I was around 37 when I first kissed a woman. Until then, I just told myself it was not going to happen, so why bother? Story 81. You act like they are willingly doing it. This is the reality of male mammals. Most are left out of sex and love for very long periods of time, some forever. Story 82. 98% of the time, it is easy for me to go without something I have never had. My case is probably not normal though. Long story short, I grew up believing, 1. That sex is evil. That all women hate sex, do not like it, do not enjoy it, and do not want it. That sex is a vile, dehumanizing, horrendous, and traumatic experience that men force on defenseless women for their own pleasure and greed. Be aware, the people who taught me that were virtually all women, and they taught me to be ashamed of being a man and of my sex drive. In my 30s, I read a book by a Christian female author, and she more or less opened my eyes at least a little bit. But old habits die hard, and even at 43, I still sometimes revert to those old beliefs. I see no reason why I should feel ashamed for being a virgin at my age, and I am very content with remaining one until I die. In short, you all probably think I am a total freak, and that is okay. I do not mind. Once you get used to it, it is not half bad being a freak. Peace and prosperity to you all, my friends. Story 83. First, you must understand that both men and women fear rejection. It is just that the responsibility is on us 95% of the time to make the first move and try not to make mistakes. It is not easy for many, and some face additional challenges. If the average man waited for a woman to make the first move, he would be single for a very long time. Now imagine a short, unattractive man who is already nervous about talking to a woman he likes, and every attempt he has made in the past was met with rejection and sometimes complete humiliation. This man will have a hard time and may just give up entirely. That is one scenario, but of course there are others. Regarding romance, those with relationship experience know that romance for men is completely different. For women, romance is a noun. For men, romance is a verb. It is work, and sometimes you just want to relax and not work so much when your mind is already burdened with all the other things life throws at you. Story 84. Some people have had bad experiences and decide to quit. But for many of us, it is not a voluntary choice. Paying a sex worker is not intimacy, so that option is out. I have no social skills, so bars, clubs, and public group hobbies are out. I am not very photogenic, so dating apps are out. How have I gone so many years without intimacy? It is simple, depression and escapism. Do I care? Of course. But this is my problem, not anyone else's. I would hate to be given pity sex. That is just insulting. Story 85. I am confident that in 99% of cases, it is not by choice. There is not much most people can do about that. If there were, they would be doing it. Story 86. For many, it is not about not wanting it. It is about learning to live without it when life does not offer that option. Over time, the desire does not vanish. It just becomes background noise. Story 87. As a single man of almost 8 years, I think you just become accepting of your situation. I have tried less and less as the years have passed. Story 88. For a while, there is a desperate yearning for something in your life that lasts for years. Then one day, that part of you simply dies. After that, you look forward to other things to keep going. Story 89. I had an angry phase when I was around 19. It has since gone away. I am 27 now and just relaxed. Social anxiety and depression were my reasons. It is something that you deal with like back pain. You wish it was not there, but it is, so you become accustomed to it and it does not feel as bad. Story 90. For some men, the physical aspect of sex can be managed through self-pleasure. If they have strong connections that fulfill their emotional needs, then the absence of sexual activity might not be a significant issue for them. Essentially, if the emotional void can be filled, then the physical void can be as well. How did it happen? I had a few bad relationships in my teens and early 20s that put me off dating, so I decided not to put effort into dating or sex in general. How do I handle it? In my case, I had friends with whom I spent 90% of my time. The other 10% was spent sleeping or working. If we were not outside doing something, we were online gaming, so I never really had a moment to sit, think, or feel lonely. However, at some point, the outside activities slowly disappeared, and the only time we socialized was online, either through text or voice chat when gaming. We lived less than a 5 to 10 minute walk from one another, but we just did not put effort into visiting each other anymore. Around this time, I started using pornography. After a few years, I stopped because I realized it was not the solution to my problem and could make things worse in the long run. Now, the only way to explain my situation is that I am used to it. I have considered getting back out there, but I just do not know. I am so used to my life the way it is that I do not know if I could let someone in or trust that the person I let in will not ruin the peace I have. Story 91. I do not feel like I am in a position to maintain a relationship, so I do not even think about it most days. Story 92. What is it you would like us to do? It is what it is. I am open to meeting new people, and if the right woman came along and we clicked, I would be all for it. What else am I supposed to do? Story 93. Doesn't mean it didn't have rough patches. There were lots of them. There were times I was extremely lonely and other moments when I was too busy surviving to think about intimacy and dating. I had my first kiss at 26, if you can believe that. A relationship at 31, too. Insane to think about. Still no idea how I got that far without anything, and people would ask me the same question. I honestly couldn't answer that beyond taking it one day at a time. You find things to occupy your mind and time. There's more to life than dating and sex. That stuff is fun, yes, but so is tasting new delicious food. So is exploring the world and trying new hobbies. I got my health in better order, picked up running and weightlifting, got back into swimming, and occasionally do yoga. I still suck. Would any of those things be more fun to do with a partner? Absolutely. Doing them on my own is just as good. In fact, it's better. As the old phrase goes, it builds character. Knowing and doing stuff makes you more interesting and adds depth to your personality. That's what I did. I began to do more things and said yes to opportunities when I could afford them, with friends or on my own. I did some things simply for the story or to say I did them. In summary, I lived my life, that's how. Story 94. You become numb to it. You get used to it. It is just another thing in the pile. You live life. Either you are in a relationship or you are not. That is it. Story 95. I mean, for me, I had zero of either until I was 21. It's just kind of where you're at. You assume that's the way it's supposed to feel. You masturbate, definitely. Play games. Go to work. Come home and just sit around. I coped a lot with online friends I had met. I hung out with coworkers and classmates fairly often, but in engineering, that was obviously all men. You are aware of the whole, but you distract yourself with other things and hope that it somewhat fills itself. Story 96. I don't really think about it anymore at this point. I live like a hermit. I only go out to work, walk the dog, and get groceries. When I get home from work, I fill my time with video games and streaming. It helps me not think about things too much. I have also been alone for most of my adult life, at least until now. I am 32 years old. I have gotten used to it. Story 97. Sex. Masturbation. Touch. I can get a woman to give me a hug. What I personally miss is cuddling. That is what I crave more than anything. Personally, I think if I watched pornography or masturbated less, I would have a better chance with women. I am actually pretty decent looking, though I have only felt that way for the last 2 years or so. However, I have many mental hang-ups that make it more difficult than it should be for me. If I stopped watching pornography, I would crave women enough to actually put in the effort. Right now, pornography seems to be a risk-reward juggernaut, even if I would like sex more. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.